Well, hi folks, and welcome to my Lori Be Crafty channel. I had a poll recently on my Facebook page where this was the transfer that won the request to make something with. So I have been doing a lot on chalkboards and on wood and other things. I wanted to feature our Couture ink this time. This is a permanent ink that you can use on fabrics and glassware and other hard non-porous surfaces. Although fabric actually is porous, but it can be heat set on things like glassware, enamelware, and you can heat set it in the oven. But for our purposes, I thought, couldn't we make this adorable little Santa bag? And instead of wrapping presents this year, I might make individual bags for people. So let's see how this works. Now, I have to admit something. Chalk Couture actually has a sticky mat to use with ink, but mine is missing in action. I may have left it somewhere and I couldn't find it, but I really wanted to do this project. So I will link the Chalk Couture version of this mat, although I'm using my Cricut mat. And in answer to your question, do I need a sticky mat? I'm gonna say yes. I think that for these types of chalk of the projects, this will help make sure that the fabric, one, stays flat and even, and it doesn't move when you are working the transfer, and two, this also will protect your the other side. Ink will bleed through fabric, so this creates a barrier so it won't bleed through to the back side of our bag. So let's get this. I want to try and get this as kind of flat and even as possible. This helps me make sure that my fabric is really flat as well. So there we go. And next we have my transfer. Now, when I know they say you're supposed to fuzz transfers, and I do. I don't always when I'm working on fabric though, because ink is a little bit thinner than chalk paste is. I kind of want that extra oomph in my transfer to make it stick. So we're gonna do this, and what I am doing here, I'm lining up, I'm using these as my center point, and I'm just gonna eyeball this, because when it's all said and done, I think trying to get things centered on a bag like this is kind of futile. You get as close to as possible, and you're really not going to tell when you're done. The only other thing you want to keep in mind is if you want to do individual bags, you may want to, with people's names on them, you may want to run your transfer a little bit lower so you can put the name on top. And in fact, I'm going to do that just so I can add somebody's name up here. And yes, Chalk Couture does have alphabet fonts transfers that you can use to personalize or really put together any phrase that you want on a project. So, but for now, we're just going to use our Santa. And what I am doing, I'm kind of eyeballing up here to make sure that I'm pretty center. And then I just want to make sure this puppy is down solidly. Now, the nice thing about ink is you don't have to work quite as fast as you do. If you can see, this is there is serious detail in this transfer, and it's very thin. So if I were using the chalk paste on a board, I would have to be like insanely careful to make sure that I worked really quickly. Ink, as I said, is a little bit more thin, a little thinner, so a little bit more leeway. So the colors I have here are Garden Herb, I have Black Velvet, and I have Candy Apple Red. So let me start with, I am going to do this part last, I think. I'm going to do my Santa, my Santa. Oh, I don't know if I want to do that though. Here, we're just gonna work our way down the transfer. Sometimes for me, the hardest part is figuring out where I start. Now, the neat thing about this is, and the reason I'm not doing this in live is because I have to chop this up into two pieces. Those pieces are one, doing the design, and then the next piece, you need to let it dry. You want your ink to be just air set, and I like to do that sometimes up to 24 hours. You usually don't have to wait that long, but for fabric, I want to be super careful with it. Now, this is a thicker canvas bag, So it is forgiving, but so you know, I could probably heat set this quicker, but I'm just not going to, because I think this is going to be a really cool project and I want it to turn out good. And I only bought 3 of these bags, so I don't want to mess one up. So I'm just going to start up here, and you work the ink the same way you work the chalk paste. No different really. And so I'm just kind of working around there. And I wanted to get, this is the green berries first. And I'm using my smaller tool here because it lets me work in a little bit closer to those berries. All right, so let's get my berries done. And a little goes a long way when it comes with ink. You do not want to saturate this. As I said, ink is much thinner than paste, and I am serious when I say that. It's a lot thinner. So you don't want to get too much, because then it'll bleed through. And you really need just enough so that color goes through the goes onto your, through the mesh, onto your surface below, and in this case, fabric. So, and you can really see how well you're doing. And I just need to be careful with that bottom. I don't want to get any of my Santa black. I want him to be all red. Now I know some people get a little nervous working with ink. Yeah, I think it's pretty fun to work with. All right, so, and I am going to do the approved down here. I just thought this would be as kind of a version of the Santa sack. Although the Santa sacks are really big. Sometimes for my family, we don't get a ton of gifts for people. We only might get 1 or 2. And so I liked the idea of a Santa sack, but I just don't have a, you know, a ton to fill it, but you can still fit a bunch in these. All right, let's do our jolly old Saint Nick right now. Now you can see I do not have a ton on my squeegee. It is just enough to push the ink through to hit that fabric and to ink stain it. I can feel that my transfer is down pretty solidly. I'm good with that. And I'm gonna go upwards here, but I still want to make sure I get all those little bits and areas down here. When you run up to the other areas, you need to be careful that you don't get, you're not pulling ink from that black up into the red area. And I have my tray over on my side where I just kind of cleaned off my squeegee real quick just to make sure, because I did pick up a little bit of black on there. So, all right, I'm pulling my excess here. Okay, let's pull it. I want to make sure, when you're working with fabric, make sure your hands are clean when you do this portion of it. So, here we go. And one swoop up, and whoa, look how neat that turned out. Look how neat that turned out. Now, I guess I could have worked my way in to do some kind of green into that sprig, but I like how this Santa turned out like this. So what I'm gonna do, I am gonna let this sit just like this, at least a couple hours. You can use a hand, like a dryer, a hair dryer, or if you have one of these, but I will warn you, if you do use one of these to dry it, pull the backer out of here first, meaning you want to pull that out, otherwise you will melt it. So don't do that. So that's why I kind of prefer just to let these air dry, and then I will come back on when, in the magic of video, when you next see me, we'll be ready to press this, which will heat set this ooh, I turned that on. That will heat set this design, and we will be ready to go for our Santa sack. So I will see you in a bit. Okay, magic, I'm back. This has been just air dried for a while. It might be a little tacky, but it's not so much. Just be careful. You really want to make sure on fabric it's mostly dry before you do this next step. So I put instructions in the description on how to heat set this with a regular iron. It's super easy to do. I'm going to use my Cricut my Easy Presso, just because it has a huge, if you've not seen one of these bad boys, it's like a big giant iron. And so it's just easier to work with, and I can set it to a higher temperature. So with my Easy Press, I'm waiting for it to heat up to 310 degrees. And it'll beep when it's ready, and then I will press 30 seconds front and back of the design. Now what I have here, I just have a regular ironing pad on my craft desk. My craft desk is pretty solid with this glass plate here. And then I have a Teflon cover, and a Teflon cover really just protects the design itself from the ink. I've always used one when I've dealt with vinyl, iron on vinyl, but I just transfer that to doing this here. Now, you know, I was thinking about this as I was typing up instructions, and you'll notice in the description I put this, how quick this actually is versus doing vinyl. Because with vinyl, we would have to weed all this. Like, have you ever weeded vinyl? It comes out great, it's fine, but oh my Lord, it takes forever. Oh, it just beeped at me, it's ready to go. So I like this because it took me, what, I think 8 minutes just to ink this design, and I could have done it quicker if I wasn't talking, but I was talking, so I'm slower. So I can bang these out rather quickly rather than cutting and weeding. And it still looks great. So my Easy Press is ready to go. It's set for 310 degrees, and I want to make sure I am on my design here, and then I'm going to do that, and I'm going to tell it to start, and you can see it's going to count down the seconds here. So I think I might have to move this up to do it one more time, so this may take me a total of 2 minutes to do, but still, this is a heck of a lot easier than weeding vinyl. Oh, I lost a little degrees there, and that's okay, but this is still a lot quicker than cutting and weeding vinyl. And then vinyl peels sometimes if you don't get the right set. All right, I'm gonna do this again just a little further up. I'm just gonna tell it to start again. Just because the design was a little longer, I wanted to make sure that I got the whole design here. I don't know why I'm pressing. I don't need to press. This is pretty heavy. It's just habit when you have a big handle. You press. No, but we don't need to here. So, yeah, I mean, I like vinyl, but this is so much quicker. And since my transfers are reusable, I can just be banging these out pretty quick here. So we're almost done with this one. Now this also has like this giant heat protector thing. So I'm just gonna set that off to the side, pull this up, and I'm now heat set. So that means that this can be hand washed. It's just not going anywhere. It's a done design. All right, so we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna actually move my Teflon to down. Oh, no, my Teflon's supposed to still be on top. So we'll do this. And then we're just gonna heat set the back side of this bad boy. So we're gonna give it another 30 seconds, and then I'll probably move it down. And this just sets it on both sides. Now, I'll show you when I have this out. Remember, I used the Cricut mat in there. I linked in the description the Choc Couture version of it, which is supposed to be back in stock within about 2 weeks from this, when I'm recording this. So that is the one that I just can't find in my craft room. Raise your hand if you've lost something in your craft room. Me, frequently. So, okay, so we're done here again. We're just gonna move that a little bit further up and do the last 30 seconds. So that mat's somewhere around here, but you know, get creative. And just to reiterate what we talked about when we were inking this, I don't fuzz transfers when I'm using ink, just because I really want it to be sealed down. Make sure when you put the transfer on that you really rub everything down so everything is stuck to it. And again, use some type of adhesive mat behind it. It just ensures that nothing's moving on that. So I'm gonna turn this off, set it over on that to dry. Pull up my Teflon pad, which is hot, and there. Now, if I wanted to, I could add like my son's name, like for Will, or just do like 4 will in there. But I don't know. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I think we can do some fun things with some bows here. I mean, I don't know if we want to give Santa a bow. That might look a little weird. I just thinking on his cap there. But yeah, you could do some fun things with some ribbons here to kind of dress it up. But it's just a fun little way to give a gift instead of just your regular gift wrapping. So there you go. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them in comments or send me a private message, a PM. As always, likes and shares are always appreciated, and I thank you all for that, and I appreciate your time watching my videos and chatting with me for a bit. All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.